Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's the one and only, your girl, the cartoon hotspot, and in today's video, we are going to be analyzing the episode Migration, which is season 5, episode 13. Like always, I'll briefly summarize the events of the episode before talking about key moments that stood out for me. If you're interested in my thoughts, then stick around, give this video a thumbs up, and for new viewers, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button for post notifications. Without further ado, let's begin. The episode begins with Marinette frantically arriving at the Kufan boat and asking to speak to Luca privately. She vents to him about how she's struggling with Adrian because there are things she can't tell him, and worse, things she can't tell herself. She then starts beating herself up for being cruel and selfish, stating, "I broke your heart and now I'm talking to you about my love life." And Luca's response is that she didn't break his heart, she only enriched it with new songs. Yeah. Marinette is immediately comforted and thanks him. As she leaves his room, she bumps into Adrian and Luca begins to picture them as Ladybug and Cat Noir. Adrian confides in Luca and voices his sadness over Marinette not being able to find her inner tune. He's basically concerned that Marinette won't ever be able to express herself around him. It's as if she has a secret side that wants to remain hidden, and because of that, he questions if you can fully love someone without fully knowing them. Luca's advice to him is that everyone is different depending on who they're talking to, but each side of a person is still one in the same. Adrian thanks Luca and leaves, and we see both Jagged and Penny ask Luca for advice as well. Bob Roth then storms into the scene, and after watching Kitty Section perform a song, he offers them a contract in order to sign them under his label. The band question if they can trust him and ask Luca to call the shots, since I'm assuming he's the leader of the band. Luca decides to give Bob a chance and the kids sign the contract. Only it was all a trap, or rather a scam, I guess. Bob explains that the contract entails he owns the right to Kitty Section, and he's only really interested in Luca since he's Jagged's son, thus firing the rest of the band. And I'm sorry, I know they're kids, but you would think it's common sense to read a contract before signing it. And yeah, I think one of the characters themselves say that the contract was full of really vague sentences, but still, you should have read it and immediately realized it was a red flag. Anyways, Monarch then senses a negative emotion from Luca and thus attempts to akumatize him. Only Luca begins to resist because he knows the identities of Ladybug and Cat Noir. Monarch puts two and two together and figures out that Luca knows, and in order to resist the Akuma, Luca smashes his guitar into pieces. Instead, Bob Roth is then akumatized into Gold Record, and Luca makes sure to get Marinette to safety in order for her to transform, and then practically tells Adrian that he knows he's Cat Noir. Whilst Cat Noir keeps Gold Record occupied, Ladybug summons her lucky charm and deduces that she needs Luca to help her act as bait. He questions if he's the right choice, since if he gets caught, everything in his heart will be revealed. When saying this, he refers to Ladybug as Marinette. Twice. She doesn't realize it the first time, but on the second time, she does. She immediately starts questioning how this could have happened, and Luca reassures her that she did nothing wrong, and neither did Cat Noir. Nonetheless, Ladybug reaffirms that she can trust him, and they devise a plan to defeat Gold Record. At the end of the episode, Luca tells everyone that he can't stay in Paris because he's a danger to not only his loved ones, but to Ladybug and Cat Noir. Jagged agrees to travel the world with Luca along with Penny, and then Luca says goodbye to everyone. But that's that. Okay, now that we've summarized the episode, let's get into our talking points. For this section of the video, credits go to Weather on Twitter, so be sure to follow him. I'll also be adding my 2 cents here and there. One of the earliest themes shown in the episode is Luca practically being the therapist friend. He's constantly giving advice to his friends, family, or anyone else in need of help. In other words, Luca is very dependable. He quite literally is a lot of people's support system, meaning a lot of people trust him. The irony that's depicted in this episode is that Luca, being the person everyone looks up to, caused a lot of harm than it did good. Luca decided to put his faith in Bob Roth, someone that doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, and in turn, his friends paid the price for it. This overwhelming amount of guilt led to Luca nearly being akumatized. I think the message behind this is that your actions do have consequences and do affect other people. And what I mean by this is that Luca found out Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities back in the episode Wishmaker. And instead of choosing to tell Ladybug the truth, he decided to keep it to himself and do nothing. Inaction is still an action. Not choosing to do anything is still a decision. Now, I'm assuming the reason for this is because he didn't want to stress Marinette out even more. And okay, I can get behind that. Honestly, I can get behind that. Because by doing that, it was bound to blow up in his face. Like I mentioned earlier on, Luca is the therapist friend, and I find it hard to accept that this isn't draining to some degree. Like, imagine listening to everyone's problem and encouraging them to let it out and be open and honest with themselves, only for you to be keeping the biggest secret there is out there. You can't solve everyone's problems whilst carrying a massive problem of your own. It just doesn't work like that. True, Luca probably thought he was doing Ladybug and Cat Noir a huge favor, but it actually put them in more risk. Luca never really considered that his decisions impact the people around him. And I think this message is embodied through Luca smashing his guitar, something he holds dear to him, in order to resist the Akuma. I would say the guitar represents Luca's values. He tried to be the guy that anyone can approach with their problem. He tried to give Bob Roth a second chance, but his kindness was turned against him. And when Marinette asks, "Can you fix it?" Luca's response is, "No, no one can." He's not talking about the guitar. We need to look at the wider picture here. That being, no one can fix the damage caused by Monarch figuring out that Luca knows the identities of Paris's heroes. So the only way around that, and to prevent even more damage, is to leave Paris. With that being said, and you probably saw it coming, we have to talk about the wasted potential of Luca Cuffon. I know I'm not the only one who has this opinion. Everyone thinks this. Honestly, this in itself should be an entire video essay, which I'll probably make sometime around when season 5 ends. But in general, I've noticed that Miraculous has this issue where the writers will build up the stakes and then resolve the conflict in a really cheap and unsatisfying way. Let me explain. What usually happens is that a problem is presented, and that's fine. We like conflict. Conflict is necessary in every series. The absence of conflict makes a show boring and uncompelling. However, Miraculous would then spend about 3 to 6 episodes building up to the height of the problem, but then just randomly decide to abandon the storyline for a bit until it's convenient, and then by the time the writers remember, oh wait, we actually need to solve this storyline, it's so anticlimactic in the end. And I'll give you a few examples to put this into context. The Lady Noir conflict in season 4 was so well set up. If there's one thing I can praise, is that Miraculous sets up plotlines pretty well. Master Fu establishing a close relationship with Marinette and not Adrien is the root of Lady Noir's problem. Then Cat Blanc was added into the mix, and then Ladybug becoming the Guardian heightened their issue. So we spend Optogami to Wishmaker, that's about 6 episodes, building up conflict between Ladybug and Cat Noir, whereby Cat Noir feels like he's no longer needed, seeing as Ladybug is keeping secrets from him. All of that is fine. But then suddenly Cat Noir is like okay during Simple Man, Chilin, Dearest Family, and Ephemeral. It's as if he just forgot he's supposed to be mad at Ladybug. And then cue in Kuruneko, and he remembers he's upset with her. And what's the payoff? Cat Noir gives up his Miraculous again. Something we've seen twice. Once in Siren and once in the New York special. When you recycle storylines or plot devices, it's not gonna have the same impact as the first time. It doesn't matter how you try to spin it, it'll just never work. And whilst I do think Kuruneko is one of the strongest episodes in the series, I stand by that. It's still heavily flawed, and it's a massive waste of potential. For starters, Ladybug and Cat Noir didn't really address their issue. Like, I rewatched the episode a few weeks ago and realized they didn't actually get to the bottom of what their issue was. The only thing that came out of that episode was Adrien realizing his true self is Adrien and Cat Noir, and that he doesn't have to pick a side, and that Ladybug realized that she needs Cat Noir more than ever. But they don't actually get to the bottom of what started this mess in the first place, which is Ladybug keeping secrets from him because of her PTSD caused by Cat Blanc. I mean, in Senti Bubbler, Marinette has a nightmare about Cat Blanc, and you'd think somewhere along the season she'd finally tell Cat Noir about it, since that's exactly what the season had been leading up to. But no, she doesn't. And that makes me so mad, if you couldn't already tell. Other examples that come to mind are the entirety of Chloe's storyline in season 3, Lucanette and Adrigami breaking up after 1 episode of being together. Like, the message behind it makes sense, but I think it would have been better had their relationship stretched out just a little longer. Also, Natalie, Gabriel, and Emily's backstory in general, and oddly enough, and this kind of saddens me to say it, the Senti being storyline. Don't get me wrong, I think out of all of the examples I've listed off, the Senti storyline has had a very good pacing overall. But it's Miraculous. I just have a really bad feeling that it's not going to be concluded well. We're 20 episodes in season 5, and Adrien hasn't somehow found out he's a Senti being. Only Felix is involved in the whole thing, and I'm just like, is Adrien not gonna find out? Who knows? My issue with Miraculous is that the writers will spend so long building something up and hooking us, but then are afraid to follow through with it, because that includes raising the stakes significantly, which is what we want. So instead, they just opt for the easy way out. Now, back to what we were initially talking about. Luca's storyline. It just had so much potential. The fact that he found out in Wishmaker and then decided to keep it a secret is a good setup in itself. And then we see the immediate consequence of that in Ephemeral. And then for 17 episodes, it's just never brought up again. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying immediately after Ephemeral the storyline should have been resolved, but honestly a lot more could have been done if they were going to stretch it out as much as possible. Instead, Luca practically gets written off the show, just like Alex, funny enough, because it's painfully obvious the writers didn't know how to conclude this arc in a way that serves the story well and serve Luca's character, or the lack of character thereof. Probably how I would have gone about it, and this is just a rough idea, I'd have to sit down and think about it a lot more rather than just rambling from the top of my head, but what I would do is that I'd have Monarch consistently target Luca, yet he chooses to still not tell Marinette. And instead of him just confessing to Marinette in like the most calm way as possible, because you could tell they just added the background music to add shock value.
É problema.
Você não tá me ouvindo, Marinette?
Todo mundo pode se apaixonar, até quando a vida fica complicada. Peraí, você me chamou de quê?
I'd have the truth be revealed in like the most dramatic way as possible, where the stakes are super high to the point he can no longer keep it in. Kind of like it had to be forced out of him sooner rather than later. And then I'd have Marinette be kind of disappointed that he lied to her in Wishmaker. I'll explain why I'd make this writing decision. Ladybug specifically asked Luca if he found out, and he denied the truth. Marinette hates being lied to. It's a big part of her character made clear since season 1. I'm not saying Marinette should yell at Luca or end her friendship, but another issue I have with this show is that certain storylines or the conclusion of certain storylines don't align with the characters, or don't align with how the characters would normally act. Marinette was kinda mad at Alia and Nina for lying to her, but she immediately forgave Alia, like that's fine. As long as she was upset that Alia lied to her and then she understood why Alia lied to her, I can get behind that. So the same thing can be done for Luca. Anyways, Luca then acknowledges it was wrong for him to withhold information concerning her identity and Canoise because he's practically a walking liability. I would also have Luca acknowledge that he can't always be the one to take on everyone's problems. It's still pretty much the same message as the episode, just the way in which it's delivered is more climactic. I'm a firm believer that you could have a really good message, but how in which you deliver it is just as important. If it's lackluster, your audience is going to be bored, and 9 times out of 10, they won't catch that message if its delivery is boring. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's not the most detailed idea, but it's a rough idea. It's no secret that majority of people find Luca bland and boring and his only character revolves around his guitar and Marinette. But real talk, I think Luca's potential is interesting. The idea of everybody coming to you with their problems but you have nobody to go to with your problems is fascinating to me. The writers can do a lot with that. Luca doesn't really have a lot of self-love or self-respect, and I'm not saying this to try to insult him or anything. This is actually me appreciating the potential we have. I think a lot of people can resonate with Luca if that's what the writers went for. Luca dated Marinette knowing she still has feelings for Adrian.
Y'all be weak in the knees. Stand up! Stand up!
Like, come on. But I can get behind that if it means he learns that he deserves to be someone's first choice. You don't always have to prioritize somebody else's happiness at the expense of your own. He's always the guy that just has everything figured out, but like, people forget he's just a kid. I like how he mentions that nobody knows the real Luca. Again, massive potential to be explored here. Who is the real Luca? Maybe the real Luca is someone who suffers from low self-esteem, so he makes up for it by being everyone's therapist because it gives him that sense of validation. I don't know, I think that's what the writers should have gone for and what they were kind of going for but then missed the mark by a mile. Luca Couffin is wasted potential, and honestly, that breaks my heart. And that brings us to the end of this video. Migration was okay, don't hate it, it was just meh. I did kind of tear up when Luca said he was leaving, but that was just about it. But as always, I'm interested in your thoughts. What did you think of Migration? Loved it? Hated it? Let me know down in the comment section. But as for today, that's it from me, and I'll see you again next time.